Hi guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be discussing about the Q4FY25 result of Manorama Industries, right? So first let us understand the business model. I'll explain the business model in a quick and easy way because we've already covered the business model in depth in our previous videos, right? So if you want to watch that video or understand the business model in depth, you can just go over to the business analysis playlist in my YouTube channel and you can just head over there. But today it's mostly regarding the Q4FY25 result, the con call, as well as what is ahead for that is for FY26 ka year. Okay, so first of all, see, when Manorama industry ka business model is very simple, right? You might have seen in your chocolates, right? They use this butter called as cocoa butter, okay, which is derived from cocoa, okay, which is the cocoa seeds, right? Now what has happened is obviously this cocoa butter that is there, it depends on cocoa, and cocoa ka prices pe utar chadav hota hi rehta hai, right? So it becomes difficult, for all these big companies, the chocolate companies and everything, to incorporate it, right? So what is a better alternative is this cocoa butter equivalent, which looks like cocoa butter, has the same physical properties, the same chemical properties and everything, right? Literally same to same. The only difference over here is, it is derived not from the cocoa seeds, but it is derived, from, let's say, mango ka seed, sal seeds, various other fruits ka seeds that are there. Na? It is derived from that. Okay. So this is their business model. Along with that, they make some others such as Styrex, olein oil and everything basically, but cocoa butter equivalent, that is the CBE, what we call as, it is one of their main product, you can tell. Okay. Now one more thing over here is, if you look at them earlier, especially until last year, until FY24, in fact until Q1 of FY25, you see, it's been a very decent 20 to 30% of growth engine. It always went, and there was also no, how do I put this, there was also no stability in terms of the growth, whether it is in the top line as well as the EPS, right? Like there was no sense of stability over here, right? Because they again, it was very, you do not know what to look up to, for the next quarter, kaisa hoga result, yeah, even for the next year. Okay. And then they come up in Q1 of FY25. We got to know, like these people were putting up a plant called as fractionation plant, okay? And they were adding extra 25,000 metric tons per annum. As a result of this, unka top line jo hai, it would go to 750 crores, right? 750 plus crore. Agar aap usse pehle dekhte ho, in FY24, the top line was around 450 crore. So, that was literally a huge jump, almost a 60% ka jump in terms of your top line ka number. So when a company is coming up with such, very bullish growth guidance, it obviously it gets very interesting, like, whether they'll be able to perform or not. And we saw in this entire year, right, whether it is Q2, Q3 and coming to Q4, the execution has been brilliant, right? Like absolutely brilliant over here, right? Because they've been able to do what they told, they told 750 crore karuga, that is what they have done. Okay. So Q4 FY25 ka result mein koi problem nahi tha. What is important over here is we have to see FY26. And this is something that is see among most people. Kya ho raha hai? FY25 ka jo hai, anyways, this year, all the companies will be getting over with it, right? And everything. What is more important is in this quarter, in Q4 quarter, make sure it is not just about the company achieving what they told in FY25, but to also see what have they planned, what have they, in store for FY26, what are the plans for FY26? Because agar iska, let's say pace of growth come hota hai, let's say they're telling in con call, kuch headwinds ho raha hai and everything, then it becomes negative. It doesn't matter usne is saal whatever they've told it, they've executed or not. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, aage jaake, will they be able to do the same thing? Demand acha hai kya? Nahi. Okay. Now, I will just start by sharing the screen, okay? So we can understand this much better. Okay. Okay, so I'll just show you guys. So this is a business model. So what they do is they collect seeds, right? Various sort of seeds, and they collect sal seed. Ek hota hai, they collect it from these regions. Similarly, they also have the shea butter. They make the shea butter. Iske liye shea seeds, what we call it, they collect it from Africa, and they have a subsidiary over there, and they collect it. And this is a process, right? They send, they have a good network of connection among these village people. Those people collect the seeds for them, or tribal women, and then they send it to unka factory jahan pe cleaning, deshelling, sab kuch yahan pe hota hai. Okay, I've explained this entire process in detail. This process also I've explained detail in that other video. Like ek baar seed milne ke baad, how that entire ek seed say, how do you make this oil, how do you make this and after getting that oil, how do you make this cocoa butter equivalent, right? So all of these things you have. So similar, they have, as you can see, there are three products mainly. They have olein, stearin and cocoa butter equivalent. This cocoa butter butter equivalent and stearin जो है ना, these are value added products, okay, and olein जो है, it is a normal product over here, okay. So this is the क्या बोलते हैं आप business model. Now let's go to FY25 का numbers. How has the numbers been? How has the result been? ठीक है. Like I told, we knew that in this FY25 they had to make 750 crores because that was the guidance given. Can you see over here, FY25 they ended the year with 770 crores, more than what is expected of them. ठीक है. Similarly, can you see on a Q4 basis, the sales grew 80%, and on a year-on-year basis, the sales grew 68%. ठीक है. अगर आप देखते हो in terms of other income, not much in terms of other income. Let me go to the income statement and show you. आप देख सकते हो अदर इनकम में भी उतना कुछ चेंजेस नहीं है. 13 करोड़ था लास्ट ईयर, दिस टाइम इट इज 18.56 करोड़. इज दिस इन लैक्स? या सो 18.56 करोड़. ठीक है, ठीक है. आफ्टर दैट इफ यू सी, लेट अस टॉक अबाउट एम्प्लॉय बेनिफिट एक्सपेंसेस. हैज इट इंक्रीज्ड? यस, इट हैज इंक्रीज्ड. इफ यू सी ऑन ईयर ऑन ईयर बेसिस, यहाँ पे एम्प्लॉय बेनिफिट क्यों इतना बड़ा है? थिंक अबाउट इट. अगर आपका प्लांट में इफ यू आर इंक्रीजिंग द सेल्स बाय 70%, obviously you'll have to employ people to do all this work. The other thing, this year, like I told you, in the month of July, they started a new plant called as a fractionational plant. उसका 25,000 metric tons का metric tons per annum का capacity है. Now, since they put up this plant, obviously you will have to hire workers ना to work in this plant. So this is as a result of it. आप देख सकते हो इतना बड़ा change in terms of employee expenses इतना बढ़ चुका है compared to last year. ठीक है. Other than that, can you see over here, EBITDA margin is also has improved over here. Last time it was 16.1, this time it is 24.8. Why did this come? Obviously because there are a couple of reasons for this. One is economies of scale. जितना आप ज्यादा produce करेंगे उतना आपका margins बढ़ जाएगा due to that. The second thing over here is, if you remember, in this year, especially from FY24 and FY25, the last 2 years, कोको का seeds जो होता है ना, उसका बहुत बड़ा volatility हुआ है. Lots of volatility, okay? Because wherever this cocoa that is there, it is grown in very few parts of this world, especially in some regions of South America, some African countries like Ghana. Now over here, either there had been a flash flood or there was a lot of drought. Because of these reasons, उनका वहाँ पे पूरा का पूरा जो कोको का plantation है, right, it was ruined. Okay, so now obviously, first of all, there are very few people who are making this cocoa seeds, and on top of that, इतना बड़ा नुकसान हो चुका है वो फील्ड में. क्या होगा? सप्लाई डिमांड का प्रॉब्लम आएगा ना, बिकॉज सप्लाई इज वेरी लिटिल, डिमांड इतना है. सो व्हाट विल यू डू, राइट? लाइक इसके वजह से कोको का प्राइसेस हैड इंक्रीज्ड अ लॉट. ओके, नाउ एज अ रिजल्ट क्या हुआ? ऑब्वियसली इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू गेट कोको, यू विल गो फॉर कोको बटर इक्विवेलेंट ना, व्हिच इज सेम एज कोको बट cheaper in price. It is made using other seeds. Now here also थोड़ा दिक्कत था, ठीक है, because when you talk about any chocolate that is there, you can't use कि like ठीक है कोको नहीं मिल रहा है, कोको बटर डालो, right? And think about it, right? कोको का प्राइस 100 rupees है, तो कोको बटर इक्विवेलेंट is probably like 10 rupees. There's a lot of price disparity between cocoa butter and cocoa butter equivalent. Now, if you are a chocolate manufacturer, let's say if you're Dairy Milk company, okay, you're Mondelez, okay, if you know that you're getting CBE at a very less price compared to cocoa, to protect your margins, will you not use cocoa butter equivalent CBE compared to cocoa? You will, right? So this is where the problem is. No company can use 100% cocoa butter अपना product में. We have all these food regulators, right? Like in India we have FSSAI, in America we have FDA. So these people tell you like how much CBE can you use in your product. Okay, if you tell I think earlier it was less than 1% you could use, and recently now they've increased it to like 5%. Okay, so all the companies can increase, they can use up to 5%, they can use this cocoa butter equivalent. Now because of this change in shift, this shift in policy that has happened, इसके वजह से उनका ये CBE का prices, CBE का मैं prices बोल रही हूँ, CBE का volume growth जो है, it grew a lot. In fact, CBE का volume, like earlier if you see, cocoa butter equivalent, if you see, to the total revenue, it was contributing only 10%. Okay, 10% in terms of volume, 30% in terms of revenue. Okay, it was contributing. In this year, if you see, it contributed, I think it contributed way more. I don't have the exact numbers because I listened to the con call live. So I think it went from 10 to 20 or 10 to 30% ka tha, the volume growth in terms of cocoa butter, uska contribution over here. Why? Because the regulators have approved. This this is one reason. इसके वजह से obviously volume growth आया, economies of scales आया, right? And as a result, EBITDA margin improved. The other thing is over here, if you look at the per ton ka price, like if you look at cocoa butter equivalent, it ranges somewhere between 5,000 to 6,000 US dollars, 5,000 to 6,000 USD, ठीक है, not Indian rupees per ton, ठीक है. तो थोड़ा उनको pricing का growth में मिला, because if you look at the clients through which this Manorama operates, ना, the contract is only for 1 year, and they work on a fixed price for 1 year, ठीक है. Because unlike cocoa butter, जिसका prices ऊपर नीचे जाता है, the CB cocoa butter equivalent ka price is quite stable. It doesn't have that kind of volatility, okay? So that is why the contract is made at a fixed price for 1 year, okay? So now you understand why margins also increased, okay? And let's come to the later part over here. If you look at PAT also improved by 180% agar aap dekhte ho year on year, that is FY24 versus FY25, and 238% in terms of, Q4 on Q4. So aap dekh sakte ho, धमाकेदार रिजल्ट है, राइट? दे हैव डन एग्जैक्टली व्हाट दे टोल्ड. 750 बोला था, 770 करोड़ किया था, 68% से आपका सेल्स ग्रोथ हुआ, एंड ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट यू हैव इमेंस ऑपरेटिंग लेवरेज, ओके? सिमिलरली यू विल आल्सो सी ईपीएस का ग्रोथ आल्सो ग्रो एट द सेम रेट एज दैट एज पैट ग्रोथ, ठीक है? ऑल इन ऑल, व्हेनेवर you have to look at income statement, what you see the sales, you see other income, you see margins, EBITDA margins आप देखते हो, you see आपका PAT and the EPS, all in all tick 100 on 100 marks for Manorama on top of that, okay? So overall everything has been great over here. Now let's talk about the first and the most important thing, what went down in the con call, okay? Like if you look at the capex जो मैंने बोला था, right? They have put up a new plant over here. The current capacity utilization is at 65%. बोल रहे आगे जाके they will take it up to 75%, which is the next year, ठीक है? Similarly, अगर आप देखते हो, they're also telling, see, the main raw material for Manorama over here is what? Seeds. They have to collect this mango ka seed, sal ka seed, shia fruit ka seed. Now, if they don't collect the seed, obviously क्या उसका butter नहीं बनेगा, उसको oil नहीं बनेगा, right? And so and these seeds are collected at one particular time, because पेड़ से गिरता है, वहां पे forest में रहता है, right? There is a particular season. So यहाँ पर also there is no problem in terms of collection of raw materials for the entire year. That is for the upcoming year FY26. They're stocked. They don't see any problem in terms of at least getting that. Okay, so that is also good. Everything is great over here. And उन्होंने बोला था FY26 के लिए they would be growing. This year they did 770 crore. For the next year they're targeting 1050 crore. Okay, 770 crore से 1050 crore का target है, या आप बोल सकते हो guidance है. And if you take this number, it is a 36% ka sales growth, okay? FY25 versus FY26. And they've mentioned out of this 36%, 30% is going to be volume growth and 6% is going to be, value growth. Price hikes se shayad milega, but mostly coming from volume growth only, ठीक है? And this year they did around 22,000 metric tons किया था, production किया था in terms of all this butter बनाने में, oil बनाने में. आगे जाके, like my calculation is, अगर वो 30% का volume growth बोल रहा है, then it will be around 28,600 metric tons, right, per annum, right? So that is the thing. So overall, यही बोला था con call में. And many people have this, this confusion कि like, आगे जाके, let's say for example, cocoa का prices, they correct, because now I believe cocoa का prices has surged more than 200 or 250%. Like the price hike has been that in that upward direction. In fact, there were a lot of memes going on कि like you would have better return on equity if you had probably a cocoa में आप कुछ cocoa के commodity लेके आप trade करते हो, invest करते हो, rather than let's say gold your equities, because cocoa has given such high return in the last 2 years compared to any other instrument or any other metal over there. So obviously, right, now there is this doubt कि like आगे जाके अगर cocoa का prices correct होता है, then probably CP, cocoa butter equivalent, which is a value added product, right, इसके वजह से Manorama का इतना पैसा बना रहा है अभी, right, इतना revenue कर रहा है, उसका भी correct होगा, right? That is the logic. But having said that, over here management का ये बोला है कि like see, cocoa butter का prices are fluctuating, but CBE का prices are stable. Okay, probably yes, 5 to 10% price hike we can get, let's say if cocoa ka prices are going up, but not a lot, because that is the main advantage that we have compared to, let's say, cocoa butter, right? The reason why manufacturers prefer CBE over cocoa butter is a very simple reason. Like one, you are cheaper, and the second, you do not have that kind of volatility in terms of your price, because you work on a 1 year का fixed contract ki like itna ton ke liye itna price. That is the thing. So it shouldn't affect them आगे जाके. The only way this cocoa butter का cocoa butter equivalent का price will get affected or demand will get affected कल जाके. Let's say all of these regulators that are there, right? It could be FSSAI, it could be FDA, whoever they're supplying to, whatever they're doing. These people are आगे जाके, let's say they tell, now they've told 5%, right, in terms of any chocolates or anything, but let's say if they revoke it and tell like नहीं 2% कर दो, 3% कर दो, that becomes the biggest risk. Then obviously you can't go against the regulation, ठीक है. इन इस पर भी उन्होंने ये बोला था कि like this regulation to use this 5% of CBE is only for those companies जिसका रैपर में लिखा होता है कि like ये चॉकलेट है, ठीक है. I didn't know this. Oh, this was like a new learning for me. Like let's say if you are buying Kit Kat, या Dairy Milk cup, if you're buying, and if it is written in that wrapper, like Kit Kat is a chocolate, right? If it is specifically mentioned, then only they can use only up to 5%. But if someone is not writing in their package or not marketing or advertising this as chocolate, then they can use even 100% CBE. So next time, guys, if you're buying chocolate, please know what you're eating, because see, cocoa butter is good, right? Cocoa is naturally obtained. It is good for your body and everything, right? That is why people tell eat dark chocolate and all. But this cocoa butter equivalent is not equal to cocoa. ये दिखता है cocoa जैसा, taste करते हैं cocoa जैसा, but it is not really, because this is mixed. The CBE that is there, they make from this mango seed oil, sal oil, whatever that is. They make from the seed, they collect the oil and they mix palm oil. Okay, the dirtiest palm oil they mix and they make the chocolate. So please, next time whenever you are buying chocolates, now I also didn't know this, but just make sure you check. It doesn't matter which brand it is. You're buying Lindt, you're buying Mondelez, you're buying some local chocolate. It doesn't matter. Make sure you check what you're buying next time. Like this was a new learning for me. Trust me, right? So this is the this is what went down in the Concord. Okay. And abhi ek aur cheez hai which I think is a main concern for most people is the cash flows. Ki like yahan pe cash flows itna negative kyun hai wo and everything. Let's just go through the cash flows in detail. Okay. पहला बात है, अगर आप देखते हो बैलेंस शीट में there is no problem because you will see equity book value has increased. You will also see ROE has gone up over here, right? You can calculate the ROE. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but ROE has gone up. There is no current asset liability mismatch also. I think their asset liability अगर आप देखते हो उसका ratio अगर आप देखते हो it is at 1.67. All in all great, ठीक है. Cash flows में अगर आप देखते हो, can you see here? I'm taking standalone over here because unka consolidated mein, there is no comparison to last year versus this year. They've only given this year. So what do I exactly compare it with, right? So over here, if you see, first of all, before working capital changes, okay, everything is well and great. Okay? Now you'll see over here, net cash flows after operating activities, it is negative, right? Last time 153 negative crores tha. From there it has improved to 58.7. It has improved. This is a good thing, right? Last time dekho 153 crores ka negative tha. This time 58 crores. So obviously it is reducing. It is becoming better. There is no doubt in it, but it is still negative. But ye negative kyun hua? Now go here. You will see the number one thing over here is inventory. ठीक है? Inventory में आप देख सकते हो 159 crore का almost I think 159 करोड़ का इन्वेंटरी है. अगर मैं कंसोलिडेटेड में देखती हूँ कितना है 161 करोड़ का इन्वेंटरी है, ठीक है. सो ओवर हियर द रीजन फॉर दिस इन्वेंटरीज इज बिकॉज इफ यू लुक एट देम उनका आई थिंक यहाँ पे the reason, most reason over here is the raw material. Like I told you, they have to collect all the seeds, right? They have to collect the what do you call that? This is in lakhs or millions? Yeah, lakhs. So all this mango ka seed, sal ka seed. So mango ka seed ka harvesting kab hota hai? In the month of April to May, right? Similarly, the shea fruit ka seed jo hota hai in the month of July to August and that. So for the whole year, they have to accommodate the inventory and keep it, right now itself when they get the harvest season. That is why you see the inventory is up. Similarly, आप देखते हो receivables, because these people over here, the working capital requirement is high. I think the receivable days, they try to maintain at 30 days, but sometimes it can extend to 45 days also. ठीक है? So that is the reason you're seeing, इतना बड़ा change है in terms of inventories and, in terms of receivables, इसके वजह से ये cash flows negative है. There is no problem as such. This is a small cap company. Please understand that. जब ये इतना छोटा company है 10,000 करोड़, I think the market cap is 7,700 करोड़. जब इतना छोटा market cap का, I wouldn't say छोटा, but when it is that small size, this is not like a 1 lakh crore market cap wala company. It's bound to happen, right? Think about it. you have to collect the seeds, then you have to keep it, the entire production आपको रखना पड़ेगा. And उन्होंने ये भी बोला, all the raw material that is there, majority of that is raw material, and they gave a logical reason. And somebody in the con call had asked, I don't know, some analyst had asked, like, do you see any risk or something, आप इतना raw material रख रहे हो? And the management, I think that guy was Asif Sara, the main guy in sitting on the management side, and he was like, bhai dekh, like, I am not seeing any risk right now in the business, and when you talk about business, there is going to be risk, right? It is not going to be a straight line, it is going to be like this, right? So I don't foresee any risk, but agar aapko risk dikhta, aap mujhe bol do, we will see into it. I mean, he gave it in such a sarcastic tone, right? See, when you talk about all this risk and blah blah blah, right, the only risk is what? One is fraud बनता है कंपनी में, the other is कल जाके पेस ऑफ ग्रोथ कम होता है, या कल जाके शायद इसने इतना इन्वेंटरी बोला, ये बोला, मैं 1000 करोड़ का कर लूंगा एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड दे डोंट एग्जीक्यूट इट. ठीक है, दैट इज द बिगेस्ट रिस्क ना, कि लाइक अभी इतना रॉ मटेरियल्स खरीद के रखा है, राइट, दे हैव डन इट, बट दे आर नॉट एबल टू कन्वर्ट दैट रॉ मटेरियल इनटू सेल्स. शायद दे हैव डन ऑल दैट सीड्स दे हैव कन्वर्टेड इनटू ऑयल, दे कन्वर्टेड इनटू बटर, but unfortunately they're not able to sell it. Probably demand घट गया, probably that. What can you do sitting being an outsider over here? You and me are retail investors. What can we do? अगले दिन जब ये होता है, pace of growth कम होता है, you get out of the stock. That is the only risk management you have. I do not understand why is it so hard for people to grasp it. Like, you and I are not running the business. We are not even their family members or someone sitting on the board to understand the risk and everything. The only risk management you have is when shit happens, get the fuck out. That is the only thing you can do. Sorry, excuse my unparliamentary language, but that is the only thing, that is the only way you can mitigate the risk. Nobody else can do anything, right? Kal jaake, let's say for all this, let's say this Manorama, because see, unka 73% is coming from export, okay, uska sales. Only 25% is coming, 25 to 27% is coming from domestic sales. Kal jaake, this guy he's done cocoa butter, everything is there, he's got the order also. Kal jaake kahin pe kuch, there is some kind of war happening, he's not getting ship में space, as a result he's not able to sell, and probably he's not able to sell that cocoa butter equivalent for the next 6 months, और वहां पे वो रख के probably it gets damaged, या probably who knows, he sent it in the ship, वो ship जाके वहां पे डूब गया, इसका sales growth गया, वो भी risk है ना. Now you tell me, what will you do with that risk, right? That is the unknown risk over here, that also can happen. What will you do tomorrow? Is there anything you can do? The problem is over here, we try to control everything in our life, but you can't. Unfortunately, there is nothing you can control in life. Okay, so this is over here the same thing. The maximum risk here is what? कल जाके इसका pace of growth कम हो जाएगा, ये guidance जो दिया वो नहीं करेगा, आप at the end of the day you will have to get out of the stock if you are a shareholder as a result, right? So that is the only thing. ठीक है, and yeah, so that's that about Manorama. मैं last में मैं ये चीज cover करूंगी is the valuation part. ठीक है, let's just cover that now. Yeah, now see, okay, now see, over here we have obviously like इस साल का sales, FY25 का sales, that is 771 crore. And what did they tell? Yeah, and what did they tell? They will do 1050 crores of in terms of sale. Now let us say, just like how in this year they told they will do 750 crore ka sale, but they ended up doing around 771. Maybe even next year, instead of 1050 they can do 1100 crore also. Probably they will do 1200 crore also. There is a high probability. Probably they can, probably they will not. So I've taken these two cases in terms of sale. Okay, and there are two cases in terms of PAT margin I've taken. Okay, one is PAT margin 15%, which is the PAT margin of FY25, and उन्होंने बोला था कि like this entire this PAT margin जो है, they will be able to sustain, and as the economies of scale improve, the margins also should improve by that. They didn't give a specific number, but let's say just like in this year, because if you look at their margins, FY24 में PAT margin was 8%, FY25 में PAT margin is 15%, almost double किया, 90% से increase हुआ PAT margin, right? Who knows, probably next year also, because of economies of scale, they might get this 20% ka PAT margin. I do not know, right? Like that is let's say the best to best case scenario, and this is, let's say, the conservative case scenario. Okay, so we know 15% PAT margin hai, 20% PAT margin hai. This is the PAT in FY25. Okay, so we can calculate the FY26 PAT. How do we do that? Because profit margin is nothing but net profit divided by sales, right? So we know the sales number, what is expected for next year. We know the profit margin, that is either 15% or 20%. And by doing this, multiplying profit margin and sales, we get the FY26 का expected PAT. Now see this. For a 36% का growth, that is अगर वो 1050 करोड़ करता है, it's a 36% का growth engine. If they do 1100 crore, then it is a 42.5% का growth engine. For this sales growth, they're going to get this level of PAT growth, at 15 and 20%, right? And for that, at the current today's market cap, that is 7,700 crore, the P is going to be in this range. So the best case scenario, that is, let's say they do 20% PAT margin, 1100 crores, the 1 year forward P is 35. And for, let's say, the worst case scenario, that is over here, 1050 crore at 15% PAT margin, the 1 year forward P is 48.8, 49 ही पकड़ दो, ठीक है? So roughly if I take, it is a 36% का growth engine available at 49 का P, 1 year forward P of 49, ठीक है? So it is not really in the low growth, it is not in a high growth low P engine, neither it is in a high growth high P, it is somewhere in between, ठीक है? Growth भी high है, P भी उतना ज्यादा नहीं है कि it is impossible over here, P re-rating होना. But here is a catch, okay? Because if you remember, FY24 versus FY25 का जो sale था, 450 से 771 crore, that was a 68% growth in terms of number. 68 या 80% का growth था, right, in terms of number, right? So it was a 70% का growth engine, FY24 versus FY25. FY25 versus FY26 कितना था? Right, FY25 versus FY26, what is the maximum growth? 36 or 40. So one thing, do you see, pace of growth has come down. Now you might tell me, yes, Prerna, right, pace of growth, 80% say, koi companies, obviously they can't, they can't continue to grow. Yes, you are right. No company can sustain that, sales double karna, because as the base comes up, base becomes bigger. It does, obviously it is impossible, to grow at that same pace, right? But here is the catch, that entire boom they got in the last year is because of the capex, right? Like wo usne naya plant dala, right? As a result, they got it. CB ka jo tha, that regulator, food regulator mein, instead of hardly being anything, they increased it to 5%, right? All of this momentum that is there, which had to give it a push, वो push उसको FY25 में मिल गया, right? अभी क्या हो रहा है इस दोनों की वजह से, because see, the plant is also operating at 65% capacity utilization, 65 से next year 75 हो रहा है, ठीक है? So जो push और momentum इसको FY25 में मिला, right? वो शायद FY26 में, the same in terms of numbers, I'm not talking anything about chart here, that kind of momentum is probably hard to see in FY26 in terms of business. जो business को growth मिला, capacity utilization हो रहा था उसका and everything, right? Because now the little bit base has been normalized. इनका अगर आप capex के बारे में बात करते हो, there is not much capex का plan. They have told कि they are putting up a forward integration or backward integration के लिए, they are planning, but once it gets finalized with the board, they will come and inform the shareholders. And other than that, I believe the capex they've done is they put up 2 subsidiaries in UAE and Brazil, right, to attack the geographies over there, to capture that geographies. Other than that, nothing. So plant में उतना कुछ capacity नहीं है कि आप, because see, any plant can work up to 80%, maximum 90% capacity utilization, right? So that is the thing. Plant में भी उतना space नहीं है. FSSAI अभी क्या 5% 10% करेगा तो well and good, then maybe we'll see another momentum. वही एक चीज है. So that is the thing. So see, यहाँ पे operating leverage तो मिल रहा है. Operating leverage ढंग का है. It is still a 40% का growth engine. So probably over here, EPS का, growth, because see, when any stock has to re-rate, right, there are 2 things for it to happen when it has to become a multi-bagger. One is PE का re-rating and the other one is EPS का growth. EPS का growth तो यहाँ पे मिल रहा है. There is no problem over here with EPS का growth, right? Operating leverage इतना से मिल रहा है. So my prediction is over here, EPS will also grow by a similar rate. PE re-rating होने के लिए अभी, what is the thing? You have to maintain that pace of growth, as well as you will have to beat all the competitors in your space. इसका तो कोई competition नहीं है listed space में. It is a single player over here. So the other thing comes over here, the pace of growth. So pace of growth तो हो नहीं रहा है. Last time तो 70% था, इसमें 40% था, and you get the point, right? So that is the thing. So that is the only worry over here कि शायद ये pace of growth कम होने के वजह से, right? Yeah, शायद ये pace of growth कम होने के वजह से, that may not, it might be difficult over here to get the PE rating. It is just the bad luck of all the shareholders who had bought it at the right time, especially jab iska Q1 ka PPT aaya, and when the management told, they will do 750 crores, and now they have actually achieved it. It is just a bad timing, because at that time, PE ka re-rating hona chahiye tha, the stock should have doubled. But unfortunately, market ka bhi mahal, it was terrible, right? I think the stock at that time was 800, वो 800 से 1200 में गया था, and in the meantime it came back, it went up. It's just, you know, right, what happened in the market in the last 5-6 months, right? Like, all stocks have been consolidating. So it's just a bad luck for shareholders, like, the stock that should have been re-rated by now, it didn't. Like, that's a very terrible luck. So this is what I keep telling, there are certain things, that are out of your control. आप जितना भी control करो, जितना भी पढ़ाई करो ना, there are certain times you just have to be lucky, and this is just very unlucky part in terms of Manorama ka shareholders. So that's that with Manorama. Good company, कुछ भी negative चीज नहीं है, ठीक है. Concall was really great. I took the Concall live over here, but Concall was fantastic. There is no negative thing. Management is very confident. Only thing, वही pace of growth थोड़ा कम हो गया. That is the only thing. But still, it is a good 40% का growth engine. Unlike, we have, because when you look at other FMCG companies or manufacturing companies, कौन अभी 40% से grow करे? सब तो 15-10% से ही कर रहे. So overall, okay, ठीक है. So that's it about Manorama. I'll see you again in another video. I'll make another video actually. India Mart, Intermesh hai, Trent hai, and there is another company that have to make Vishal Mega Mart. All of the companies I'll cover in one video. Okay, that's it, guys. Take care. Bye.